Have you ever wondered why a group of regular people can often make better decisions than even the smartest expert in the room? Sounds crazy, right? But what if I told you that the collective power of a crowd could solve problems, make predictions, and even change the world? This isn't just a theory, it's real. And that's what The Wisdom of Crowds by James Surowiecki is all about. In today's video, we're diving into how ordinary people, when brought together, can outperform experts, shape society, and influence major decisions. And trust me, this idea is a total game changer. From predicting the stock market to deciding what direction traffic should flow, Surowiecki breaks down how crowds solve problems more effectively than we ever thought possible. But here's the catch: there's a secret formula behind it, and I'm going to reveal it to you. In this book, we'll explore the 4 key ingredients that make a crowd wise: diversity, independence, decentralization, and aggregation. Plus, we'll uncover some jaw-dropping examples where crowds have changed the course of history. But wait, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. When does the crowd get it wrong? I'll share some fascinating stories where groupthink, greed, and misinformation led crowds to disaster. Believe me, you'll want to stick around for this. So, if you're ready to discover the real power of collective intelligence and how it can shape everything from business to politics, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into the fascinating world of the wisdom of crowds. Trust me, about to rethink everything you know about decision making. Let's get started. That's exactly what Surowiecki explores in his book, and today, we're diving into the introduction, where he lays the foundation for this radical idea. The core concept is simple but powerful. When groups of diverse people come together, they can collectively make decisions that are more accurate, insightful, and effective than those made by a single expert. But how does that even work? How can a group made up of people with different experiences, knowledge levels, and sometimes conflicting opinions end up being smarter than the individual expert? Surowiecki doesn't just give us the theory, brings it to life with a brilliant real-life example. It all starts with a story from 1906 at a country fair in England. Francis Galton, a British scientist, came across a curious competition. Around 800 people were trying to guess the weight of an ox. The winner would be the person whose guess was closest to the actual weight of the animal. Now, most of the participants were just ordinary folks, farmers, workers, and passers-by, not professional butchers or livestock experts. Galton, who believed in the superiority of individual expertise, was skeptical about the wisdom of the crowd. He assumed that most of these people would guess wildly, and only a few would come anywhere close to the ox's real weight. So, after the competition ended, Galton gathered all the guesses, expecting to prove his point that collective judgment is usually flawed. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. When Galton calculated the average of all 800 guesses, he discovered something shocking. The average guess, 1197 pounds, was astonishingly close to the actual weight of the ox, which was 1,198 pounds. That's right, the crowd, with its diverse mix of educated guesses and wild stabs in the dark, came within 1 pound of the correct answer. This example blew Galton's mind and set the stage for what Surowiecki explores in The Wisdom of Crowds. It turns out that under the right circumstances, crowds of people, even without specialized knowledge, can collectively arrive at better decisions than a single individual, no matter how knowledgeable that person may be. But how can we make sense of this? How can a crowd's collective guess be more accurate than any one person's? The answer lies in the diversity of opinions. Each person in the crowd brought their own unique perspective. Some were way off, but others were closer to the truth. When you average them together, the extremes cancel each other out, leaving us with a highly accurate result. In the introduction, Surowiecki uses this story to highlight the core theme of the book: that when people from different backgrounds, experiences, and expertise come together, their collective intelligence can outperform the so-called experts. It's not about one person having the right answer, it's about the collective wisdom that emerges from a group of diverse individuals. This idea challenges the traditional reliance on individual experts and encourages us to think more broadly about how we make decisions, whether in businesses, governments, or even everyday life. Throughout the wisdom of crowds, Surowiecki will build on this concept, exploring how collective intelligence works in different areas of life, and when crowds make better decisions than individuals. But as well see, there are conditions for this to work: diversity, independence, and the right mechanisms to aggregate those opinions. Well, it turns out that not every group has the potential to be wise. In fact, for a crowd to make smart decisions, 4 specific conditions need to be met. In part 2 of the book, Surowiecki outlines these conditions, and today, we'll break them down one by one. First, we have diversity of opinion. This is probably one of the most important conditions. Why? Because diversity brings different perspectives to the table. Each person in a group comes with their own knowledge, experiences, and ways of thinking. When these diverse opinions are pooled together, they create a broader view of the problem at hand. Think of it this way: if everyone in the group thinks the same way or has the same background, they're likely to approach problems from the same angle, which limits the group's ability to find innovative solutions. But when you mix in people with different expertise, backgrounds, and ideas, you get a richer pool of insights. Some might see things others miss, and this blend of viewpoints is what makes the crowd wise. Now, on to the second condition: independence. For a crowd to be wise, each person's opinion must be formed independently, without being influenced by the opinions of those around them. Why is this so critical? Because when people start copying each other's ideas or following trends, the wisdom of the crowd gets lost. Groupthink and herd mentality can take over, and we all know that can lead to disaster. When everyone's opinion is independent, you get a true mix of ideas. Some guesses might be way off, others might be closer to the truth. But when you average them together, you end up with a smarter, more accurate decision. So, for crowds to work well, people must make their judgments free from peer pressure or outside influence. The third condition is decentralization. This might sound a bit technical, but it's simpler than you think. Decentralization means that individuals in the group can draw on their own local, specific knowledge to contribute to the decision-making process. No one person has all the answers, but everyone in the crowd knows something unique to their experience, environment, or expertise. By allowing people to make decisions based on their own specific knowledge, whether it's a mechanic knowing how cars work, or a farmer knowing how crops grow, you allow the crowd to tap into a wide range of expertise. This decentralized decision-making is key because it prevents power or influence from being concentrated in just one part of the group. And finally, the fourth condition: aggregation. This is the process that brings everything together. Once you have diverse opinions, independent judgments, and decentralized knowledge, you need a way to combine all those individual decisions into a single collective decision. Aggregation is the mechanism that allows the wisdom of the crowd to emerge. Think of aggregation like averaging everyone's guesses in the ox weight contest. Without a way to combine those individual guesses, the collective wisdom of the crowd would never come to light. Whether it's through voting, polling, or simply averaging numbers, aggregation turns individual judgments into a unified outcome. So, to recap, for a crowd to be truly wise, it needs to meet these 4 key conditions: diversity of opinion, dependence, decentralization, and aggregation. Without these, the collective intelligence of the group falls apart. But when all 4 are in place, the results can be truly remarkable. In the rest of the wisdom of crowds, Surowiecki explores how these conditions play out in real life situations, from business decisions to financial markets, and even in politics. Well, see how wise crowds can be a powerful force for good. but also how things can go wrong when these conditions are violated. So, as you think about decision-making in your own life where you're working in a team, voting in an election, or simply making everyday choices, remember the wisdom of crowds isn't about getting everyone to agree. It's about bringing together diverse, independent voices and finding a way to combine them. In part 3 of the book, Surowiecki dives into different types of problems and how crowds tackle each one. He categorizes problems into 3 main types: cognition problems, coordination problems, and cooperation problems. Each type presents a unique challenge, and the collective intelligence of a crowd can approach these problems in fascinating ways. Let's break them down. First, we have cognition problems. These are the kinds of problems that require knowledge, logic, and thinking, things like solving puzzles or predicting future outcomes. Imagine you're trying to guess the number of jelly beans in a jar, or forecast the stock market. These are classic cognition problems. The crowd's role here is to pull together diverse insights, independent judgments, and specialized knowledge to reach a more accurate solution. Surowiecki points out that in cognition problems, the individual guesses might vary wildly. Some will be way off, but when you aggregate them, they often average out to the right answer. He uses the famous example of Sir Francis Galton's ox weight guessing contest. While individual guesses were scattered, the collective average guess was remarkably close to the actual weight of the ox. This shows how crowds can often get to the truth, even when most individuals are far from it. Next, we have coordination problems. These involve how people in a group synchronize their actions to function effectively together. Think about how traffic systems work, or how pedestrians naturally avoid collisions when walking in crowded spaces. These problems aren't about getting the right answer like cognition problems. They're about aligning behavior in a way that benefits everyone. In coordination problems, people need to figure out what others are going to do and adjust their own behavior accordingly. Surowiecki provides examples like traffic flow, where drivers unconsciously coordinate their actions to avoid accidents, or how people in a crowded room manage to move around without constantly bumping into each other. The interesting part, crowds often solve these coordination problems without central control. Instead, individuals use cues from those around them to decide how to act. The result is a kind of spontaneous order. Surowiecki argues that decentralization plays a huge role here. In a decentralized system, no one person or authority is telling everyone what to do, yet somehow, coordination still happens. People instinctively adjust to one another, drawing on local knowledge and the behavior of others to find the best way forward. And finally, we have cooperation problems. These are the trickiest because they involve situations where people need to work together, even though they might have personal incentives to act selfishly. A classic example is the prisoner's dilemma, where two people must decide whether to cooperate or betray each other for their own gain. In cooperation problems, the challenge is to encourage people to act in ways that benefit the group as a whole, rather than just themselves. Surowiecki explores real-world examples like how to prevent cheating or free riding in a group. For instance, in a team project, if one person slacks off and lets the others do all the work, the overall quality suffers. So, how do crowds solve these issues? According to Surowiecki, one of the solutions lies in creating systems of trust and accountability. When individuals in a group know they'll benefit more by cooperating than by acting selfishly, they're more likely to contribute fairly. The crowd's collective intelligence is at its best when people understand that working together creates mutual benefits. This is often done through social norms, shared rules, or even economic incentives, anything that encourages cooperation over individual self-interest. So, to sum it up, Part 3 of The Wisdom of Crowds breaks down the kinds of problems that crowds can solve into 3 categories: cognition problems, which require thinking and knowledge; coordination problems, which are about aligning behavior, and cooperation problems, where the challenge is to work together for mutual benefit. Each type of problem requires different approaches, but in all cases, the collective intelligence of a crowd can be incredibly powerful. Whether it's guessing the weight of an ox, figuring out how to navigate traffic, or ensuring fair cooperation in a team, crowds often have the ability to find better solutions than any one individual could on their own. In part 4 of the book, James Surowiecki takes us into the fascinating yet cautionary territory of when and why crowds fail. While crowds can be smart, they are far from infallible. In fact, there are critical situations where crowds can make disastrous decisions. Surowiecki explores a range of factors that lead to the failure of collective intelligence. He identifies 3 key reasons: groupthink, information cascades, and the lack of diversity or independence. Let's dive into each of these in detail. First, we have groupthink. This is one of the most well-known ways crowds can fail. Groupthink occurs when the desire for harmony or conformity in a group leads to poor decision-making. Instead of challenging ideas or considering alternatives, individuals suppress their doubts to maintain consensus. As a result, the group may end up making irrational or suboptimal decisions because critical viewpoints are ignored. Surowiecki points to historical examples like the Bay of Pigs invasion, where U.S. government officials, despite clear warning signs, proceeded with a plan that turned into a disaster. Why? Because dissenting voices were stifled, and the group failed to question the assumptions that underpinned their decision. This is the danger of groupthink. The collective intelligence of the group is undermined when people prioritize agreement over critical thinking. The second failure mechanism is information cascades. This happens when people make decisions not based on their own knowledge, but by following the actions of others. Instead of relying on diverse and independent insights, individuals in a crowd may start copying one another. This can create a domino effect, where the crowd is swayed by a few initial choices, regardless of whether they are correct or not. One of the clearest examples of information cascades comes from the financial world. Think about bubbles in stock markets or real estate. During these bubbles, people keep buying into markets, not because they've done their own analysis, but because they see others doing it. They assume the crowd must be right. But when enough people make decisions this way, it creates a collective irrationality, and the bubble eventually bursts. Surowiecki explains that this happens because individuals stop thinking independently and start following the herd. Finally, Surowiecki points to a lack of diversity and independence as another key reason why crowds can fail. As we discussed earlier, diversity of opinion and independent thinking are crucial for collective intelligence. When those elements are missing, the wisdom of the crowd collapses. For instance, in some corporate environments or political groups, you might find situations where everyone shares the same background, opinions, or information. Without diversity, the group is more likely to fall into an echo chamber, where the same ideas get reinforced without any critical examination. Independence is also vital if everyone's opinion is influenced by those around them. The crowd no longer functions as a collection of independent minds, but as a single entity prone to errors. Surowiecki emphasizes that diversity isn't just about having people with different ethnicities, genders, or backgrounds. It's about having individuals with different perspectives, experiences, and knowledge. When these elements are missing, crowds become more homogeneous, and the lack of independent viewpoints leads to poor decision-making. So, in summary, Part 4 of The Wisdom of Crowds explores the situations where crowds fail. These failures often occur when groupthink takes over, stifling dissent and independent thought. They also happen during information cascades, when people abandon their own judgment to follow others, leading to irrational decisions. And finally, when a crowd lacks diversity and independent thinking, it loses its ability to make wise decisions. Surowiecki illustrates these points with compelling examples from the disastrous groupthink behind the Bay of Pigs invasion, to the financial bubbles caused by information cascades, to the failures of homogeneous groups that lack the diversity needed for sound decision-making. Each of these failures highlights the delicate balance that crowds must maintain to remain wise. Without diversity, independence, and critical thinking, the collective intelligence of a group can quickly turn into collective folly. This part of the book serves as a reminder that while crowds can be incredibly intelligent, they are not infallible. Understanding when and why crowds fail is just as important as understanding when they succeed. It's a powerful lesson for leaders, businesses, and societies that warns against blind trust in group decision-making and stresses the importance of fostering diversity, independence, and open debate. We arrive at Part 5, where James Surowiecki explores the powerful implications of crowd wisdom in various domains, including economics, politics, and business. This section examines how organizations and societies can harness collective intelligence to enhance decision-making and drive innovation. Surowiecki begins by illustrating that the principles of crowd wisdom are not just theoretical. They have real-world applications that can lead to remarkable outcomes. For instance, in economics, he discusses the concept of market behavior. Financial markets can be seen as a crowd of investors making decisions based on their expectations and insights. When functioning correctly, these markets aggregate the knowledge of many individuals, allowing for accurate price setting and efficient allocation of resources. However, as we've learned in previous sections, this process can also go awry. When crowds act on misinformation or succumb to groupthink, markets can bubble and crash. Surowiecki emphasizes the importance of creating environments where diverse opinions are encouraged and independent thinking is valued. 2. Ensure that collective intelligence is harnessed effectively in financial markets. Moving from economics to politics, Surowiecki highlights how collective intelligence can improve governance. Democratic systems, when functioning optimally, utilize the wisdom of the crowd to make informed decisions. Voter opinions can aggregate to reflect the will of the people, leading to policies that are more representative of societal needs. Yet, he cautions against pitfalls like misinformation and manipulation that can distort public perception. Surowiecki argues for the necessity of transparency and access to information, enabling citizens to make informed choices. He believes that the more individuals understand the complexities of issues, the more empowered they become to contribute to collective decision-making processes. Next, Surowiecki delves into the realm of business, where the principles of crowd wisdom can drive innovation and enhance competitiveness. He illustrates how organizations can tap into the diverse perspectives of their employees, customers, and stakeholders to generate new ideas and solutions. This approach encourages a culture of collaboration, where everyone's input is valued, leading to more innovative outcomes. Companies like Google and W.L. Gore, the makers of Gore-Tex, have successfully implemented structures that leverage crowd intelligence. They foster environments where employees are encouraged to share ideas freely and collaborate across teams. This not only enhances creativity, but also empowers employees to take ownership of their work, leading to a more engaged workforce. Moreover, Surowiecki points out that customer feedback and crowdsourced data can significantly improve product development and service delivery. Organizations that listen to their customers and incorporate their insights into decision-making are more likely to meet market demands and thrive in competitive landscapes. Before concluding, Surowiecki reinforces the idea that while crowd wisdom is a powerful tool, it's essential to recognize its limitations. He emphasizes the need for structures and mechanisms that promote independence, diversity, and accountability. This balance ensures that the collective intelligence of crowds can be effectively harnessed while mitigating the risks of failure. As we wrap up, Surowiecki leaves us with a profound takeaway. Understanding the dynamics of crowd wisdom is crucial for navigating the complexities of modern life. Whether in finance, politics, or business, recognizing when to trust the crowd and when to approach collective decision-making with caution can lead to better outcomes. In a world that often feels divided, the potential for collective intelligence reminds us that we can achieve remarkable things when we come together. The wisdom of crowds is not just about numbers. It's about collaboration, shared insights, and the power of diverse voices coming together for a common purpose. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the wisdom of crowds by James Surowiecki. I hope this summary has inspired you to think critically about the power of collective intelligence in your own life and decision-making processes. Remember, while crowds can often lead us to great insights, it's our responsibility to ensure those crowds are diverse, informed, and free from the pitfalls of conformity.